the issues of weight loss, you're asking questions. What do I do now? And we live in a day and a time that we're between diets, between medications, between all the advice that we get on the internet, it's hard to know exactly where to go and who to listen to when it comes to the issue of weight loss. And so today we're going to listen to Lindsay Venn, taking some time to get some of the lectures from what she talks about weight loss and insulin resistance, particularly about GLP-1s, and how our bodies actually create that GLP-1. This will be a little bit longer, but I really want you to make sure that you ask any questions. Make sure that there's issues that you have that maybe arise that relate to you. We'll have time to talk about this. I might interrupt the webinar as we go through it. But today I want to focus on this really key thing that so many people are dealing about. We're in the second month now of the year. And how is it going with your New Year's resolutions? Where are you at along the way? Here at Healthy Together, I'm trying to help along this way. I'm doing it too. We are doing a sugar detox right now. We are into the second week. Today is day 9 of our sugar detox. So we've got some great resources over on our Facebook group as well. So if you have not joined there, there's a link up in the description here on our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you come and be a part of that group and get some of the free resources that we provide there with menus and guidance and everything. So without wasting any more of your time and mine, let's delve into this issue. And if you've got comments, maybe you've got questions, type those in the comment section. Let's have some conversation as we deal with this issue of weight loss and insulin resistance.
So first things first, why should you worry about this? Who should worry about this? What are some signs and symptoms that may indicate you have this? So things that we like to talk about. Insulin is a growth hormone. It makes things grow. Skin tags are excessive skin growth. That's an example. We've got this thing called acanthosis nigricans, big fancy word that means increased growth of skin pigmentation. So we get darkening in the folds of the skin on people. Belly fat, especially the kind that's underneath, and Trent always hits on this, but the kind that's underneath the abdominal cavity. And so you can't pinch and jiggle this abdominal fat. It is there, but it makes you look, if you're a man, it makes you look pregnant, or if you're a woman, it makes you look pregnant. Fatigue, if you are unexplainably tired, that's a problem. Or if you're always hungry, you eat and an hour or two later, you're starving, you have insulin resistance. So what is it? Well, let's talk about it. So this slide, I always love to show because every cell, this example down here in this, my pen's not working. Well, we'll do it without the pen, apparently. Every cell in the body requires insulin in order to get glucose in. And glucose is the number one fuel source when it comes to what the cell wants to use for fuel. There we go. There's the cell. So this is exactly what it looks like. Insulin is almost like a lock inside of a key inside of a lock. So if our cell is a lock and we need to open up the door, then we're going to use insulin over here in this receptor to open this door for glucose to be able to get into the cell. Insulin resistance is exactly what it sounds like. It's the cell being resistant to the effects of insulin, meaning that part doesn't work, meaning glucose cannot get in. And this is a problem because if there's no other fuel source for the cell thinks it's starving, and that's what triggers those things like fatigue and being hangry and whatnot. So a normal person, if I were to put it on a graph, I always say, they eat something, their glucose goes up, their insulin goes up, and they come down nice and normal. Someone with insulin resistance, the glucose pattern is exactly the same, but the insulin has to do this massive rebound in order to get glucose into the cell. And what often happens then is the glucose will crash. And when the body senses glucose doing this rise and crash thing, it makes you want to eat. And what happens when we eat? We raise glucose and we raise insulin again. And it's this cycle that we can't seem to get out of. The other problem that happens is when we have this level of increase of insulin in the body, we start to store glucose in the form of fat into places we don't want to, places like the liver and places like the muscle, which can cause a lot of problems. The other problem is that we store fat in two different ways, and 95% of us do it in the form of hypertrophy. This means that each tiny fat cell just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, which is good because we then have a limited number of fat cells and we can only get so big. The problem with it is it's extremely inflammatory, and that's what leads to all of these chronic diseases, diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure, etc. The other 5% do this thing called hyperplasia, which is the fat cells themselves don't get any bigger, but we can make hundreds and thousands more of these fat cells, leading to these people who are my 600-pound life kind of people. They're metabolically technically healthy, but they're so overweight and obese that obviously they're not healthy. So we want to avoid the inflammation of hypertrophy by lowering insulin. So the studies they've done, this was 2019, they showed that only 12% of Americans are actually metabolically healthy. The other 88% are not. And so the chances of all the 200 plus people that are on this call, 243, Trent, look at that. Chances are is that at least 200 of you have or know someone with insulin resistance because it's so prevalent. The most recent study actually shows that 93% of us are metabolically unhealthy, which is a real big problem. So why does it matter? This is why it matters. If you look at all of these different diseases, they're chronic diseases. They're not what we call communicable diseases. You can't catch these. You don't catch fatty liver. You don't catch diabetes. You don't catch high blood pressure or low testosterone. These are diseases that are caused by one main factor, and that's insulin resistance. This is a real bummer because it leads to so many problems, but it's also a really wonderful thing because there's one strategy that if you have multiple of these, you can fix with that one strategy. So bear with me. We're going to talk about the main ones of these. Type 2 diabetes. This is diagnosed typically by your medical providers with an A1C equal to or greater than 6.5. I don't love this metric because 6.5, as you can see down here on this chart, is a blood sugar of 154. But at 6.4, when you're not diabetic, you're at 151. Well, that measure could be checked 1 minute or the next. And so it's not a great indicator. I don't love it. What I want you to do is to catch your diabetes or prediabetes sooner. We want to make sure that you are catching this in the pre-diabetic phase so you can get it better. So we're looking for hyperinsulinemia without hyperglycemia, meaning that means your insulin levels are high because you have insulin resistance, but you don't have high blood sugar yet because it's keeping up as well as we can. So make sure you get a fasting insulin with a goal of less than 6. Don't let your doctor tell you that 15 is normal in the reference range because it's not. Those are not fasting. We want fasting insulin to be less than 6. If you're already in the diabetes range, we want to make sure that you work on getting that A1C less than 5.5. Hypertension or high blood pressure. This is very much related to insulin resistance for this variety of reasons. This image comes from Ben Bickman's book. And so we're going to talk about the things that cause high blood pressure. The first one is increased volume. When you have a closed system, like a garden hose, that's why that picture is there. When you have a closed system and you increase the amount of volume in that closed system, you're going to increase pressure. Well, we have increased volume because we have increased aldosterone. We have increased aldosterone because we have increased insulin. So getting insulin down will help bringing, excuse me, will help bring down that, pardon me. Too much talking and I get it. Anyway, that helps bring down the aldosterone, which will bring down the volume, which will bring down the pressure. The other thing that happens is we get insulin resistance of the vascular walls. So they become too thick and they become unable to vasodilate, which will also lead to an increase in pressure. Again, closed system. If you have a decreased ability to dilate plus an increased volume, you're going to have increased pressure, both improved by lowering insulin. Pardon me, I'm going to struggle with this for a second.
Hey, take all the time you need. If you need to get a drink, feel free to get a drink.
Pull out my tea and make it better, right? So, perfect. I did get a new big bottle for my tea too, by the way, which I absolutely love because it keeps it cold. Okay, so coronary artery disease. So this is really related to cholesterol and clogging of the arteries, and that's why I have the picture of the pipe in here. We used to be told that eating high fat, high cholesterol, saturated fat was just like pouring hot grease down a cold pipe. Not true. 100% not true. This theory is completely false. What we do know is the inflammation and insulin resistance shown by measuring a triglyceride to HDL ratio actually is a much better predictor of coronary artery disease. And what you're going to do, Canada note here times 2.3. But what you're going to do is take your triglyceride, divide it by your HDL, and that's going to give you your triglyceride to HDL ratio. Mine, this is my numbers. I'm at about 1.0. This is the last time I checked it. I look at these numbers all day long in hundreds of people every week. And a very typical triglyceride in a patient is 150. A typical HDL is 50. These are, again, quote unquote, normal. If you measure that ratio, you're at 3.0. For reference range, we want to be really happy, we want to be less than 1. To be okay and kind of happy, we want to be less than 1.5. You're not necessarily insulin resistant with that number. Anything greater than 1.5, you do have insulin resistance and a worry when it comes to coronary artery disease. Alzheimer's or dementia is now known, as you can see here, as type 3 diabetes. And there's a reason for this. This is because the brain becomes insulin resistant and leads to dysfunction of brain function, leading to memory loss, cognition, etc. And so what happens here is the brain is extremely picky. It can only use 2 sources of fuel. The first source is glucose, and the second source is insulin, or I'm sorry, ketones. Just like I showed in the very beginning of this presentation, if your cell is insulin resistant, glucose cannot get in. And why is that a problem? Well, most people are not on a diet that allows for ketones to be formed. We do know that the brain likes ketones and it prefers ketones, but if you're not intermittent fasting, you're following a low carb diet, you don't make ketones. And if your brain is insulin resistant, then you're not able to utilize glucose. So this is certainly a problem. Fatty liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is what this little definition stands for. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now the #1 cause of hospitalization related to liver problems in the United States. This is exceeding alcoholic liver disease, it's exceeding Hep C, different kinds of hepatitis, etc. So it's become a really big problem. We call the storage of fat in places where it's not supposed to be stored, we call it ectopic fat. So if you look at steak, for example, this is ectopic fat in cattle. Really, they're not supposed to store fat in their muscle, but we force feed them grains by feeding them low protein diets, and they now start to store fat in their meat. Foie gras, they start to store fat in their liver. Foie gras is fatty liver of a goose because we feed them too many carbs, increase insulin resistance, increase ability to store fat in places we don't want it to. This map just shows you the prevalence, and I have said this over and over and over again. These are the people who know about it, and diagnosing fatty liver is extremely difficult to do, and by the time you see it on labs, it's really, really bad. So don't use your labs as a gauge of whether you have fatty liver, use your insulin resistance. So fertility, female fertility, PCOS is the #1 cause of female fertility worldwide. If you have some of these symptoms, hair loss, facial hair, abdominal weight gain, infertility, etc., string of pearls around the ovaries, and we have problems with anovulation, meaning that they can't ovulate and therefore they have problems with fertility. Get insulin down, aromatase starts to work and fertility gets much better. For men, testosterone is huge, and so we do know there's a very indirect relationship between testosterone and insulin. The higher your insulin, the lower your testosterone, and vice versa. The lower your insulin, the higher your testosterone. I've seen many, many, many men improve testosterone levels by hundreds and hundreds by lowering their insulin. The other issue is that vasodilation thing that we talked about earlier. If you can't vasodilate, you can't have proper erectile function, leading to ED. So now let's talk about this GLP-1 thing that we were talking about a minute ago, because this is, boy, is this a hot topic. I just got done speaking with a pharmacist about this, and I think he's going to start doing Feel Great rather than selling tirzepatide and semaglutide, but we'll see how lucky I was. So GLP-1 is this hormone. It's called an incretin hormone that is actually secreted from the intestinal tissue in the body. And so it does a huge number of things. As you can see here, there are a gazillion things in this slide that GLP-1 will impact. Your stomach, it slows gastric emptying. It helps with your mental capacity when it comes to appetite suppression. It helps reduce the amount of liver fat. It helps change the kind of fatty tissue you have. There's so many benefits to GLP-1. I can't even talk to you about it because it is so beneficial. The one thing I point out here, I did cross this off on the slide up here. They're in vitro studies are ones that are done in a petri dish. In vivo studies are ones that are done in people. And they did find in vitro in the petri dish that insulin secretion was increased. So those of us in the insulin world really were like, oh my gosh, we don't want that. We don't want to increase insulin. But when they did the in vivo studies in actual humans, they did not. They actually showed a decrease in insulin. So that's why that's crossed off of this slide. Actually, no increase in insulin and actually a reduction in insulin with GLP-1. So where's a good place to find GLP-1 benefits? Well, the yerba mate, the chlorogenic acid in Una mate actually has been shown to boost GLP-1 by 60 to 70%. My very own friend Ben Bickman just did a study on this, and he actually studied this actual product. You know, there's all kinds of studies on chlorogenic acid or whatever out there, but the study itself on Una mate that he did was actually 60 to 70%. He didn't publish this yet. And so I believe, yes, this next slide, because it's not published data, I think I got the audio to work this week, is going to talk about the fact that what he found.
Una mate, which is a yerba mate supplement, which my lab, we actually published a paper on that. In fact, some unpublished results that I'll be sharing at a meeting in March in Las Vegas is that this yerba mate supplement called Una mate also increases GLP-1. We found in this experiment we did that GLP-1 levels went up by about 70% in a fasted state, which is pretty considerable.
So pretty exciting. We love to have him say that. And he actually did share a slide with me. I can share it next time with actually the data from the research study that he's getting ready to publish. So where does this come from? The yerba mate is this plant. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce it, but it consists of all of these wonderful things. There's lots of benefits to caffeine and theobromine and all of these other things. Adaptogens is one of the kind of hot topic words that people use, but the one that I want to focus on, thanks to GLP-1, is chlorogenic acid. There's actually a lot of chlorogenic acid in the yerba mate concentrate of Una mate, which is huge. Very insulin sensitizing, helping to reverse insulin resistance. To show that it's not all just me and Ben Bickman and Insulin IQ, there are lots and lots of studies out there on the benefits of chlorogenic acid when it comes to cholesterol, weight, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, blood pressure. All those things that you saw in that big circle have all been proven by multiple researchers and multiple labs to benefit chronic disease. So what's the problem with the synthetic ones? What's the problems with Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Zepbound, all of these things? You can see the list over here. There is all kinds of issues with it. It's a synthetic product, number one, so it's not natural. Number two, we are getting people into these supernatural levels of injections of GLP-1. The body's not used to this. It doesn't know how to handle it. I did talk to Ben the other day and I said, you know, all hormones have a negative feedback loop, meaning the higher the hormone, the less stimulation from the brain and from the rest of the body to actually make your own. So are we technically shutting off our own GLP-1 production when we actually give it exogenously? I really question this. It really makes me wonder in some of the stuff I'm seeing. The other issues is we have lots of gastroparesis. This is to the point where people are having to go on permanent tube feedings, which is just traumatic and tragic and life-changing. Nausea and vomiting, constipation, there is a black box warning for thyroid cancer. And a lot of Ben, what he has talked about is the fact that if you lose 50 pounds on Ozempic and you have to stop it and you regain 40 of it back rapidly, well, 30 to 40% of that weight loss was not fat, but what you regain is 100% fat. And so you're losing muscle, which is sarcopenia, you're losing bone, which is osteoporosis, and now you're becoming super fat, because now you've regained a huge percentage of that body fat back, you know, unintentionally when you have to stop these meds for whatever reason. So kind of sad. I really love to promote the Una mate rather than the Ozempic or the different medications that are out there, because you get all the benefits without the side effects and you can do this lifelong without any worry. So if you want to reach me, here's how you do it. I'm happy to help out whenever I can. I'll now turn the time back over
I appreciate that. If you were in here the whole time, this will be saved over on my webpage. So under our Reversing Insulin Resistance 101. Welcome in. I am Coach Ken, and I'm up in Anchorage, Alaska. Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm going to stop sharing that and welcome in. Tell me where y'all are coming from. I'm about to finish my Unimate. I've got like one little drink left of it today. How are y'all doing? Tell me where y'all are coming in from. And did you enjoy the Super Bowl yesterday, or were you completely bummed out by the if you even paid attention to it? I was doing it just on the internet. My son came over, so I got to hang out with him, and that was way more important. And we were getting a chance to catch up and talk, so that was a good thing. And enjoy some time together. Slide go. There we go. So we've been talking about insulin resistance, particularly about the issue of weight loss. And that's not always a thing we focus on, but there's a lot that resistance is contributing to 93% of the reasons why we're metabolically unhealthy in our world today. And I can tell you, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, this is where I was right before that diagnosis. I was bloated. I was overweight, almost 200 pounds at the time. When the doctor came in, it was December of 2020. Hypertension. I had migraines, acid reflux, which I had been suffering with, gracious, for a long, long time, almost 20 years after my cancer diagnosis. So it's been a huge thing for me. And so when I was diagnosed, my wife was diagnosed the next month with prediabetes. As a nurse, or as a doctor, she called a nurse who was also a diabetes educator that said, you are dealing with something called insulin resistance. And it's in the world of science. It's in medical science. We're talking about it. It's just not at the forefront. There's debate on it, which is, of course, anytime that you get into a position where there's more and more research being done on the subject, that there's a discovery, there's a group of people that are, nope, we don't want to talk about that. That's not, we don't have enough research. And then there's a whole group that's saying, you know what, we've had the research, we've seen it. Now we're doing the study, backing it up. Dr. Ben Bickman has been one of those that has really pushed. And if you scroll back just a little bit, if you're coming in, you already got to see his video. So if you missed that, because he is the leading scientist on that. Now, I don't have to say that. The research is there and shows it. And he was talking about this product called Mate Concentrate to increase GLP-1. And why is that important? Well, it's important because GLP-1 medications are such a huge thing. How many of y'all have heard of GLP-1 medications? If you've heard of GLP-1, type yes in the comment. If you've never heard of GLP-1, type no. GLP-1s are something that has been a huge bone of contention, a debate, if you will, at point. I mean, they're very popular, right? We've seen them pretty much everywhere. They are available easily. Doctors are prescribing them regularly. I talk to people and coach people all the time that are on them, that are using them for whether it's diabetes or for weight loss. And the reason that they go hand in hand, it's like there's like a if it's causing weight loss, it's because insulin is the problem. Insulin being that incretin hormone, it's a catabolic hormone. And when insulin is high, it's telling the body to store fat for fuel. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Because my wife suspected it as a doctor for 30 years. It's something that she had suspected that nobody was talking about it. She'd been questioning about it ever since she was in med school. Why are we giving insulin to people that are making insulin? Why are we giving more? What we've got to do is get to the root of what's happening. Now, I'm trying to get my slides to come up here, and I can't seem to get them to show up on the screen. I'm not sure why my computer is not doing what it's supposed to do today. And that is really a bummer. I'm trying to get this to do. Yeah, it's not wanting to create. Oh, there it went. Nope. My goodness sakes alive. New tab that. Technology is funny. The thing about living in Alaska is sometimes technology doesn't work quite the way it should. So I'm Coach Ken. I'm up in Anchorage, Alaska. And as you're coming in, type in, let me know where you're coming from. We have, nope, still no sign of the sun yet. We should be getting it here before long. We're slowly creeping up with more sunlight these days. So something to throw out. Even though I can't get this up, what we got to do is bring that down. And so what Ben Bickman was talking about is this product right here, this Unimate, is a nutraceutical that's in the PDR.net. It's studying the research. And what Lindsay was telling us was that this increases our body's GLP-1 by 60 to 70% in a fasted state. That's what the research has been showing. What's that? When we take a hold of that and say, this is what our body's been making all along. We don't need a synthetic. We have that opportunity. Now, the great part about this is you can take it with that, and it crushes the food cravings, which is what GLP-1 agonists do. Those help to crush those food cravings that we get during the course of the day. Let's see. Trying to get back over here to get my slides to work correctly. I think we're getting there. Good morning, y'all. Glad that you're coming in. So we were talking about of insulin resistance. That's the huge part of what trying to get this slide to come up. And we are going to run this slideshow if it will let me and share that over. I don't know why we've got such a lag. That's just, like I said, it's kind of like living in Alaska is quite that we have to deal with. And the lag of the internet, I pay my and still winds up lagging on things, and that's the nature of it. So learning what insulin resistance is a key part of it, and that your body is sitting here showing those signs. We start to get that weight. We look up there on the slide, obesity being one of the signs of insulin resistance, because when insulin is high, that incretin hormone is stimulating that weight gain. And I know it. I've lived it. And if you're like a lot of people, many of us have lived it. I was there at 200 pounds, struggling. And had been doing it for years, thinking that a dad bod is just what we're supposed to have. And it's not. It's not at all. So what's happening? Well, the body is storing insulin in our cells. It's not going anywhere else other than into the body. Now, once the insulin is put in the cells and the cells are full, as you can see in insulin resistance, there's no other place for it to go. So glucose and insulin simply enters into the bloodstream and is poured out throughout the bloodstream. And that's going to lead to what diabetes is. Typically, we find that with diabetes, we are dealing with the effects of insulin resistance. Now, what is diabetes? There's a sugar and a glucose buildup. Now, insulin is the hormone that moves sugar to the cells. Type 1 diabetics are not making insulin. They've got to have insulin to live. So that slide kind of lays it out. Type 2 has too much insulin and the cells resist Prediabetes. We have insulin resistance before we may even be diagnosed. And prediabetes might be part of that. And we can look at some of those different signs. In addition to that, right, we come over here and type 2 diabetes is full blown insulin resistance. Now, you may not have that, and the doctors may not have those numbers yet, but we can look at other things to determine this and recognize that how we are eating has contributed to what's going on in the problems that we have. And that weight gain, because insulin is so high, we have such a problem. We have been eating out of order, and eating out of order has led to us having this modern diet dilemma, in part, along with the fact that fiber has been taken out of our foods. So in nature, apples come packaged in pectin. That is a fiber. It's not something to be just scraped right off with a pocket knife. We've got to have that. When God created the world, everything that would spike your blood sugar was packaged in fiber. But when we take it out, we don't get that. So we need to clothe our food in fiber. But when it's already out of the processed foods, now we've got a problem, right? Now we have a huge problem. So what are we going to do about it? Well, in this modern diet dilemma, what do we have? We are spiking all day, all right? We are spiking our blood sugars all day. And when we do that, we are causing fat stores. We eat all the time. We never stop eating. It seems like we're eating from the moment we get up in the morning because we were taught. How many meals a day were you taught to eat? Was it 3 or was it 6? How many meals a day were you taught to eat? I mean, that's so very important for us to recognize, because each and every one of us were taught to eat different things, right? We were taught to eat. And when we do that, we're spiking our blood sugar levels every single time. So learning to eat correctly, man, my screen is going, there we go. All right. Is such a key part of this. All right. So we want to clothe our food in fiber. We want to eat veggies. We want to eat proteins and fats, and we leave carbs last through the end of the meal. We want to start by and focus on 30, 60, 90, 30 grams of fiber, 60 grams of healthy fats, and a minimum of 90 grams of protein. Now, intermittent fasting comes hand in hand with that. That's what the chart up there shows, is that when we are doing intermittent fasting, we're bringing our insulin levels down greater than we're doing calorie restrictive eating. Now, you can do intermittent fasting in a couple of different ways, right? We can do 16 and 8 is the most popular. I like 18 and 6. It gets you a couple of hours of the early stages of autophagy. So you're really cleaning out those blood cells, and we're eating 2 times a day. That's really it. Now, when it comes to it, what we find to be the most powerful way to do this is by a simple product. And like I said, this is where I started. This is where I started right here. At 200 pounds in the fall of 2023 is when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. All right. My blood sugars were at a 6.9. I had hypertension. My blood pressure was out of control, and I needed a solution. My wife was the one that got on the phone and called a nurse and a diabetes educator. We started on this protocol. She started in it in January. 1st of February. I started in May after watching her transform her body, her life, and her health. By doing that, by taking on a simple protocol of the Unimate that Dr. Ben Bickman was talking about, knock down the food cravings, increase my GLP-1, lowered the inflammation. Adding that to the balance. The balance has been studied at the Cleveland Clinic and studied at the University of Sydney. We're talking about working like metformin. We're talking about lowering blood sugar levels. We're talking about blood pressure. We're talking about helping the vessels to vascular dilate. We're talking about cutting out the food craving. This is over 20 clinical studies. You can see some of the universities and locations where it's been studied. It's HSF and FSA qualified. It's in the PDR.net. It's a nutraceutical. It's over in 50 countries around the world. It's patented. It's guaranteed. It's one of the best products on the planet, and it fits within this simple lifestyle. It comes to only about $5 a day. So if you are looking for something that's reasonable, All right. If you're looking for something that's reasonable in terms of cost wise, that is not going to break the bank. All right. If you use the code that we have right down there, you will get $70 off of the retail price. That is for the life that you do this. You get $70 off that retail price. And you get us as coaches. You get Dr. G and I as nutrition coaches, as health coaches along the way to use the product, to ask questions. And that doesn't cost extra. You get a 90-day money-back guarantee with it as well, which for us, that was like a no-brainer. Hey, with all of the research that's been done on this, you get that support. There are science calls. Besides my call that you're on here, we have science calls Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, I think Wednesday night, Thursday night. I think the only day we don't have something going on is Saturdays, but you have access to us. So you have that. And so we will be there along this journey. For us, it was a game changer. For us, it was a complete game changer. This was what it did for us. That's the weight loss part. And today we're kind of focusing on that. I don't always focus on weight loss, but I kind of need to sit there and look at my week and go, maybe once a week, because it's such a big deal when it comes to insulin resistance. This was huge for us. We needed to lose some of this weight. Our bodies needed it. It's not a weight loss protocol, though. It is about metabolic health. And so it works on a cellular level to change how your body is processing the food, how your hormones are working, because it is natural. It's a nutraceutical. It is in a form. So when you look at the packet, you'll see it's measured. You don't have to guess about it. And it's as simple as mixing into a bottle just like this one. This is my last of my Unimate tea. This is the last of this one right here, the Unimate. It's one of the first things I drink in the morning. Now, you can drink coffee with this. It's totally fine. That's kind of like always a popular question. Can you drink? Yeah, absolutely. You can drink coffee with this. That's not a problem. And you won't break a fast when you drink coffee. This does not break a fast. Neither of these break a fast. All right. The fiber doesn't break a fast and the tea doesn't break a fast. So if you've got any questions, let me know. If you want to reach out, I will be putting a link in the comment section as well, if in the description. So make sure you check that out. You can reach out to us at any time. Don't hesitate. All right. Thanks so much for being here. And I appreciate you stopping in. If there is anything, you let me know. I'll pause for a second. Let me know where you're coming in from as you stop by. I would love to hear. It's been kind of quiet out there today. Not normal. I usually get some comments here. So was hoping to hear from some folks, but I know after the Super Bowl, some folks might be a little worn out, and I get it. So thanks so much for being on. And we will see you back around on the flip side. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and check out some of the other videos that I've got.